Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is light and darkness and how we perceive them as opposites and separate, but we get to look at what it is when we unify these seeming polarities and what might be available to us. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning and everybody else who's joining us. We're gonna, before we get started, let's just take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose, hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells and your molecules and your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's put our palms together and rub those palms vigorously and feel the sensation, the friction, the tension, the temperature, the buzzing, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. So welcome. Today we're talking about light and darkness. It was so interesting yesterday. Oh my gosh, there are some intense energies flying around. I had some super powerful sessions with people yesterday, like going to whole new dimensions, literally and figuratively, in terms of transformations yesterday. It was so powerful. So somebody said that the moon is in, I don't know if it's true. I thought that the full moon was going to be in Cancer, but I think somebody said that the moon was in Scorpio, or I don't know what, but boy, oh boy, really intense, powerful energies and lots of stuff about light and dark and power and control and surrender and deception, all kinds of big time energies. And so I wanted to talk about this notion of light and dark and being all of it. So we tend to want to chase the light and to deny the darkness, right? To deny the darkness within us. And in that denial, we are feeding that darkness and making it, giving it disproportionate weight. And the interesting thing, you know, I was seeing these polarities yesterday, like vividly in sessions that I had the privilege to do with people that were super intense. Oh my gosh. And the bottom line that I think came through yesterday was, first of all, that we are all of it, and that the universe is all of it, that one doesn't exist without the other. And we were talking about the yin yang symbol and how it's a dynamic of transformation in a three-dimensional form, where it's in constant motion, where one is emerging into the other and evolving into the other. And that there's a dynamic and essential balance between light and darkness. And so we tend to deny our own darkness, you know, or exile our darkness. And what happens when we do that, rather than engaging with it in a way to transform it, you know, to create that dynamic, right? What happens is that it festers, and we perpetuate our division, our internal division, rather than nurturing our wholeness. And if we look at creation, if we believe that there's a perfection in creation, we see all of it. It's all part of it. And Rosalind says, just as the rainbow requires rain and sunlight to create it. Oh, Rosalind, I love that. I mean, it's such an obvious fact, but it's not something that we bring to our awareness necessarily. So too must life include the joyful and the sad times. Colors of experience. I love that you use that expression as well. Colors of experience, growth, and energy that interweave to make you the unique being that you are. So, so, so beautifully said. True poetry, Rosalind. Thank you for that. And by the way, if you guys are listening and I'm not responding to comments you're making, it's because you need to go to Enlightened World Network's Facebook page to enter the comments, or Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. And then when I see the comments, I'll respond. So yeah, colors of experience. That's so beautiful. I was introduced to a piece of an indigenous tradition or worldview that, instead of talking about light and dark, was talking about the two forces of creation, beauty and chaos. And I thought, isn't that fascinating? In this one session, beauty was truth, and was just present, and not even speaking words, but speaking through the silence, and was just this pure impartial presence. And I don't know if you've heard the phrase terrible beauty, where there can be beauty in things that we would not normally consider to be beautiful. You know, that there is, if we were to see a photograph of a desolate landscape, there's a beauty that we could perceive in that. That beauty is something much more deep, something much less superficial than attractiveness. You know, there can be this terrible beauty about something, like the beauty captures our heart in a multitude of ways. And so when it's interesting, when I haven't really gotten to dig into this whole idea of beauty and chaos, but there's beauty in chaos also, you know, that as I'm thinking about it in this moment, and thinking about polarity, that maybe the chaos is the distraction from beauty. You know, perhaps there's beauty in all of it. that there's light in the darkness and darkness in the light, and that it's all part of the dynamics of the universe, and one doesn't exist without the other. And so when we transcend those divisions, we can see the motion, we can see the dynamism, and we can see the perfection in that dynamism from another place, like the place of creation again and again and again and again. Good morning, Lisa. So good to have you here joining us this morning. We are talking about light and dark and beauty and chaos. And really what we're talking about is unity. Really what we're talking about is the oneness and the acceptance. So in this one session, my client was being exhorted to embrace and accept both the darkness and the light, seeing lifetimes that were very dark, and where in her presencing herself to these other lifetime experiences, she felt disgust and revulsion and all kinds of emotions that were pushing away this experience, rather than finding a way to include it as part of the richness of her being. And I think what we can recognize, and this was a revelation sort of experience for me at one point, was to recognize that although I like to think of myself in certain ways, that in fact, given the right circumstances, I would be capable of pretty much anything. And when we recognize that we are all those things, when we recognize that we have the capacity, the capability for all of it, even the most heinous of things, then there's a freedom around that, and a deepening, I think, of compassion, and maybe even humility and wonder, because in our denial of that, there's a certain righteousness, right? Which is maybe part of the chaos, maybe part of the darkness in the light, as there's so many people that we've seen in history and in contemporary culture that have very high and well-meaning intentions, and yet in the expression of those intentions, they perpetuate the darkness, right? Or they embody the darkness of power, control, domination, othering. Interesting, right? It's like it's all part of this dynamic system that perpetuates itself through these pulses of different contrasting energies. So when we can incorporate those parts of ourselves about which we have shame, where we hold shame, where we hold guilt, where we hold judgment. If we can accept those parts of ourselves as aspects of being, we get to nurture different aspects, certainly, but you know, I'm thinking about how there are parts of ourselves that we spend a lot of energy trying to hold at bay. You know, like if we don't trust ourselves, then we're constantly monitoring and constantly assessing. Rosalind says, what does it mean to have done shadow work? That's what we're talking about now, for sure. So I think we could call the shadow those parts of ourselves that we judge, that we don't like, that we revile, that we've been that we punish ourselves over, the parts of ourselves that may be vengeful, or you know, the things that we consider dark. So shadow work is truly coming to a place of recognition and acceptance and metabolizing of our many aspects. You know, we may value honesty, and yet there have been times when we've lied. And so perhaps we carry guilt and shame around those times that we've lied. And there's a place of, I'm not saying to exalt these parts. What I'm suggesting is that we get to integrate them. That, you know, oftentimes those behaviors come from woundedness. So this is what we've been talking about this week too, about life happening for us and through us. And sometimes we don't understand the workings of all of it, you know. So when we do something that someone else suffers from, what it may look like is we're a perpetrator and they're a victim, and there may be a larger working to all of it. You know, maybe we all get to play all the roles. Maybe we all get to experience all the experiences. So, and I don't know that this is true, but it's another one of my working hypotheses that we are life living itself through us, you know, in all aspects, God coming to know itself in all aspects and all potentials. And so that means all experiences, the pain, the suffering, the triumph, the oppressor and oppressed, power, every aspect of all of it. And if we're experiencing life, we're experiencing all aspects. And that all of that is part of the greater whole. We tend to want to pick and choose our experience, right? We want it to be in the epic words of one of my clients, rainbows and unicorn farts, right? Because I'm imagining that unicorn farts probably smell like the most sweetest of flowers, you know. But it's all of it. It's all of it. And certainly as we look out into the world, we can see all of it. And it often feels that there's an imbalance of light and darkness, and that there's sort of this battle going on. I mean, sometimes it really feels that way to me, that that there's been a strengthening of the darkness, or a greater preponderance of it, and what I'm seeing is that that's forcing a greater emergence of light, um, or precipitating a greater emergence of light. So Rosalind says, where in the spectrum of light are you when things feel static or unmoving? That's a great question. And I'm having this visual of this spectrum of light. I think if you're just in the light or just in the darkness, just in the white or the black, that's when things may be unmoving. You know, that it really is a spectrum. And maybe every space in between is where the dynamics are. I don't know. I'm totally making that up, because I don't know if things are ever static and unmoving, although they may feel that way. Maybe you're not on the spectrum at all in that case. You know, somehow you popped off the spectrum if there's nothing moving. I don't know. That's a great question. So this notion of being whole, you know, and embracing those parts of ourselves that we've exiled, because we cannot be whole, we cannot be healed as long as we're in denial of those aspects of ourselves that we don't embrace. And for some of us, it's not embracing our light, you know, like, not, that was another session that came up as yesterday was so intense, man. Is just seeing just seeing our darkness, just seeing our weakness, and not seeing our strength. You know, just seeing a limited view of ourselves rather than the fullness that we are. It's not just a matter of light and dark, but, you know, seeing our strengths, being willing and able to celebrate our accomplishments, our triumphs, our gifts, you know, and instead just beating ourselves up for our flaws. You know, so this takes place on both sides. It's like that beating ourselves up for our flaws is focusing on the darkness. We're not seeing clearly. And so it was really fascinating to do a session on visibility, actually a couple sessions with different people on visibility, and to recognize that we are often not visible to ourselves in truth, that we're truly not seeing ourselves clearly. And because we like to think of ourselves in certain ways, even if those ways are negative. That's what we're predisposed to do, right? Like is maybe the wrong word there, but, you know, that we're predisposed to see ourselves through a negative light sometimes. Or we like to think that we're not capable of certain things, or indiscretions, or we beat ourselves up when we recognize that we've engaged in certain things that we have judgment about. Rosalind, you are just a poet today. Rosalind says the moon is illuminated at night. It's beautiful. So light through the darkness. Light through the darkness, darkness through the light. The lighting last night was so bizarre that I actually went outside and to try to be present to it. It was the weirdest light. It was kind of, it was at after sunset, and still the sky was pretty bright and had a yellow cast to it, and the clouds looked like they were airbrushed onto the sky. It was just wild. So yeah, the moon is illuminated at night, and the moon illuminates the night. So anyway, light and darkness, we are all of it. So embrace it, embody it, and metabolize it, and allow life to move through you in its pulses and its rhythms and its rich variety. So that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out all the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. And I am so grateful to you for your engagement and your presence in these conversations and your willingness to be thinking about these things and being on this path of awakened awareness. So Rosalind says, through the difficult days and happy days, just shine. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So much love to you. Until next time, hope to see you again here really soon. Have an amazing